promised, here is the video for how to make your very own coil clips for any kind of planner really, using your Silhouette, Portrait, or Cameo, and having the machine do all of the cutting work for you. So the tools that you're going to need to make this happen is you're going to need a laminator, you're going to need lamination pockets, and you're also going to need a Silhouette, Portrait, or Cameo, and a cutting mat. Now, I originally designed these coil clips for an Erin Condren Life Planner, but if you use the same steps that I go through and just get your own measurements for whatever planner that you have, you can make coil clips for anything. It could be for a Filofax or a KikiK. It could be for an Inkwell Press or a Happy Planner. You're just going to need to find a couple of measurements that I go through in this video, and you can make them for yourself as well. If you have an Erin Condren Life Planner, lucky you, I'm going to give you all the measurements for making those coil clips. And I actually designed these coil clips based on one of the free coil clips I got with my planner this year, and I just took all the measurements off of it and then drew the pieces for the coil clip inside my software. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take one of your lamination pockets and you're going to send it through your laminating machine empty, blank, and just run it through a couple times to get it laminated into a flat piece of plastic. Originally, the coil clips I wanted to do were made with 10 mil laminate because that was most similar to what the Erin Condren coil clips material was made out of. It's a much thicker piece of plastic, and with that I was able to mimic I think this is a fairly pretty shape, but you can see the keyhole cutouts mimic the Erin Condren coil clips, and the keyhole shape needs to have a thicker material. Now, the problem I ran into is my machine's regular blade would not cut through the 10 mil lamination that I made the first time around. In order to have this keyhole shape, you need to have a thicker material. So I went back to the drawing board and I ended up creating a coil clip that looks like this, not quite as cute or exactly what the Erin Condren one looks like, but it does the job. So with a thinner laminate, you're going to need more material right here to hold the coil clip into place. If you have the keyhole cut out here on the thinner plastic, these things will just pop out. So what I ended up doing is I just created the punches and then a little slit, and these pop in and out of my planner just fine. I do have the Silhouette deep cut blade on order coming to me, and once I get that, I will show you guys how to make coil clips with a 10 mil laminate and the keyhole shape. Honestly, I think I'm preferring the 5 mil laminate because it adds less bulk to my planner, and it's just easier to create the cut in the coil clips like this rather than creating this whole keyhole shape. But if you would like to learn how to do this, I will do another video on that later. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to send a blank pocket through your lamination machine. So you're just going to send the plastic through and a couple of times, get it nice and flat, and then that is going to be your material that you're cutting into. So send that through your lamination machine, and then you're going to open up a new Silhouette Studio document. You're going to get rid of your registration marks because we're not printing and cutting, you just are going to be cutting. So get rid of those, and then I do like to keep my cut lines on there, so show cut border, because I want to make sure that I don't ever go too close to the edge of the page. You can see you have to get really close to go outside of that cut border, but just in case we have that on there. And when I was developing these coil clips, I ended up making a document called Coil Parts because inside of it held all of the parts of a coil clip. You can see there's a bunch of different prototypes. When I'm working on something, I like to, it's the scientist in me, but I like to keep all the prototypes available so that I can check them out later if I need to. If I need to go back to the drawing board, which I did a couple times, you can see that here was one version I tried, here was a thicker keyhole, here's a thinner keyhole, and here's the design that I ended up using for the clips that I'm going to show you guys how to make today. So what you're going to need is you're going to need the measurements. If you have an Erin Condren coil clip nearby, you can take the measurements off of there. If you have an Inkwell Press coil clip that you like or a Happy Planner clip that you like, you can use that as well. So that's what I did. I just took an Erin Condren clip and I measured it. So the measurements for the Erin Condren coil clip are, it is 1 inch wide by 2.09 inches tall. You're also going to need the diameter of the punch itself, and for our coil clips for Erin Condren, the punch is going to be 0.16 inches in diameter, so 0.186 inches wide by 0.186 inches tall. You're also going to need the distance between the edge of this coil clip right here to the edge of your hole punch, which is 0.125 inches, and then you're also going to need the distance between the edge of your coil clip and the edge of your first circle right here, the first punch. So that ends up being, for the Erin Condren, it's 0.09 inches tall. That's what I drew these boxes for. The width of the box doesn't matter, but I needed the height of the box to be the distance in between the edge of my coil clip and the edge of my first punch. When I was first designing these, I also took the measurements in between the punches as well, because what I did is I designed a couple coil clips. I changed the color of the outlines here to black, and I ended up printing them out on regular printer paper, and then I held up my coil clip over the top of it to see if everything lined up, which it took a few tries, but eventually it did. So when you're designing your own coil clip for whatever planner you're using, I would definitely recommend designing it by the measurements that you get, then change all the lines to black, hit print, and then hold your coil clip up over it and compare it, or hold it up next to your planner and make sure that the holes actually line up. So I'm going to show you guys a little trick for really all you need, because theoretically on the coil clip all of these should be equidistant apart. But if you get the measurement between the top of the coil clip and that first hole and the bottom of the coil clip and the last hole, and then the machine, or the Silhouette Studio software has the ability to space these holes out. I'll show you guys exactly how I did that. They're all going to be equidistant apart. So you're not going to have to sit there and measure in between each individual hole. You just need this distance right here and this distance right here. So in my coil parts, I have all the individual components that I need to make this clip. So we are going to take, if you're starting from scratch, you're going to want to draw yourself a rounded rectangle. I like the look of a rounded rectangle better than the square edges, but you could keep it square if you like. So you're going to just draw yourself a rounded rectangle, what I say, 2.09 inches tall and 1 inch wide. So try to get it as close to that as possible. And then you can use these red dots right here to change how sharp you want your edges to be. So that looks fine to me right there. And then you're going to select it. We're going to go to our scale window, which is right here, and we're going to change the width. You're going to unclick lock aspect, because if you leave lock aspect as it is, you're going to change the entire shape together, and I want to work on the height and the width independently. So I'm going to unclick lock aspect. The width is going to be 1 inch wide, and the height is going to be 2.09 inches tall. Okay? Hit apply or hit enter. Now you have the exact outline of your coil clip. One thing I do like to mention when I'm doing these types of videos is every once in a while you want to go into your cut settings and make sure that all of the parts you want to be cut or not cut are correctly highlighted. I've made many projects where I thought something was highlighted to be cut and the machine didn't cut it because it actually wasn't set to cut. If you don't want it to cut, you select the object and you hit no cut, and there's a different, you can see the thick red line means it's going to cut, thin red line means it's not going to. And I've also had the opposite happen to me, where I thought something was going to cut and it was accidentally selected as no cut and I wanted it to cut. So every once in a while I like to go through and make sure that my cut settings are correct, and then right before I send it through to the machine I always double check that as well. So now that we have our outline for our box, we are going to need to make the punch part. And we're going to have a hole punch in the clip, and then we need the slit so that we can pop this in and out of our coil. So with the keyhole design, like I said, that's going to be a whole nother video, but we're just need that this is a lot more complicated to design, and you have to use the weld tool. This is a lot easier to design, and it'll do the job for you. So we need to make a circle. The diameter that I measured for the Erin Condren coil clips is 0.186 inches. So we're just going to draw ourselves a circle here. And I just try to make my circle look fairly circular-ish, but you can go in with your adjustment here on the scale window, and we are going to again unlock aspect because I want to work on height and width independently. We're going to make it 0.186 wide by 0.186 tall. Hit apply, and now we have a perfect circle exactly like the one I've already designed. The next thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to draw a line. So this will tell the machine to cut from the edge of your coil clip into your hole punch so that you can pop it in and out. So let's zoom in a little bit. So you're just going to draw a straight line, and you can see the software tells you if you're starting to get out of alignment because the numbers that pop up on your left side show you that you're not exactly straight. So you want to be exactly straight across. You don't want any of those numbers to pop up on the left. So we are going to push that down until we have a straight line. There's no numbers on the left, and I want it to be 0.125 inches. Okay, so now we have all the components of creating the hole punch in our coil clip. What you're going to do here is we want to zoom in a little bit, and I want to make sure that this cut line is in the middle of my circle here. I don't want it to be cutting up there. I don't want it to be cutting down here. So I'm going to eyeball it, kind of pick a middle point in the middle of the circle as best as I can. Then I'm going to select both objects, and we're going to come into the alignment window, and I'm going to tell it, I'm going to go to align vertically, and I'm going to tell it to align in the middle. So you can see it just moved up just a tiny bit. Now I'm going to zoom in even more, and I'm going to make sure that this line is cutting into the circle. So you can see that I allow just the tiniest bit of overlap to make sure that I am getting this cut line all the way through to my circle. This section is going to be punched out anyway, so this line right here needs to make sure it goes all the way into the circle. Then because I actually moved it again, I'm going to select both objects one more time, align middle, just to make sure I didn't move anything up or down. And now we have the components of the punch. So we're going to select the whole thing. I'm going to group those selected shapes, and that means that I can move this around as one object. If I want to unselect them, I'm going to click the whole thing. Then I'm going to come down here, and it says ungroup selected shapes, and I'm going to click that, and now they're independent of each other again. But I want to move them together, so select them both, group selected shapes. Alright, so now in my coil clips parts document, I have everything that I need to build a coil clip. The last thing that you're going to want to do to help you get your spacing done properly is you're going to create two little boxes that kind of look like this. So you can just use a regular square. And I want it to be, let's see, what did I say my height was? I want the height of the box to be 0.09 inches. Doesn't matter the width, we're just using this as a measurement tool, so 0.9 inches, whoops, too far. Sometimes you can get it just by dragging it. If you can't get the shape to cooperate, just select it, come back into your scale window, and then you can mess with the numbers right here. But so now I've created this box. I'm going to copy it and paste it, or replicate it, whatever you want. Control C is copy, Control V is paste, or if you're on a Mac, Command C, Command V. Or you can also right-click the object and hit copy and paste. So now we have all the components of what we need to build our coil clip. So we're going to start moving this into a new document. So I'm going to select this object, copy it. We're going to go to our new document. We're going to paste it here. I'm going to grab these two boxes, so you can select both of them, copy and paste, and then we are going to grab our coil hole punch, copy it, and paste it in here. So this is everything that you need to create a coil clip. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get our measurements correct. Now, when I looked at my Erin Condren coil clip, there were 8 punches in the actual coil clip itself. So there was 8 holes along the side here. So I'm going to need 8 of these right here. So Control C, V, Control V, Control V. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 clips. Now, really, all you need to do, we're going to move these over so that they're still in my window when I zoom in a little bit. The most important thing that you need to do for this part is get your measurements from the edge of your coil clip to that first hole punch. We already took our measurements and we already created a guide. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use our guide boxes to tell us where to put the top and the bottom punch for the coil clip. You really just need to get the top and the bottom punch in the right place, and then you can use a tool in the Studio software to align everything else to where it needs to be. So we're going to use this box. I'm going to zoom in here and just eyeball it. The width doesn't matter because we are going to end up deleting or moving these boxes, but just eyeball putting the box on the very edge of the clip, and then you're going to align your first hole punch with the bottom of this box. So it doesn't matter, you don't need to worry about this part. We're going to make those edges of the clip line up perfectly in just a second, but you're going to focus on getting the bottom of this box to touch the edge of this circle right here. Again, it doesn't have to be totally perfect, but try to make it look like this as much as you possibly can. Now we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. We're going to take our box down to the bottom, line it up, and we're going to set one of these hole punches again right on the edge of that box, okay? So you should have something that looks like this. I know based on my measurements, this hole punch and this hole punch are the proper distances from the top and bottom of my coil clip. So we're not going to delete these boxes quite yet in case we make a mistake. Again, we're being good scientists and not getting rid of what we need. We're just moving it aside in case we need it again. And then you're going to take the rest of your punches and kind of place them in here as close as you can in alignment. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. I'm going to show you guys how to make it perfect. So you can see here we have a couple of these lines are sticking out on the side. These holes are kind of moving along, not in a perfect line. And then the distances between our holes is not exactly perfect, right? So now we are going to use our software to make all of that line up perfectly. So we're going to select all of the objects together. We are going to go to our alignment window and we're going to tell it to align left. So now that puts all of the edges of our cuts on the edge of the coil clip. Still doesn't change the distance between our circles. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just align, we're going to select all of these punches and we're going to tell it to space vertically. Now watch what happens to the circles. They are now perfectly spaced out in between. I set the top and the bottom circle where I wanted them. That didn't change. If I was to select all of this and hit space vertically, it might have come out differently. It'll change the distance between this circle and the edge of the coil clips here. So I set this object and this object where I wanted it, and then I just highlighted those objects and told it to space vertically, okay? So now this all looks good. We can delete these because remember, we have our coil parts document, so if we need to go back and pick any of this stuff up, we can. But we're gonna delete this. And we're going to get ready to send this to the machine. So just for ease of copying and pasting, before we do that, let's check our cut lines. So everything in here is set to cut perfectly. Your machine might cut this out in a funky order. I thought that because I copied these all the way across and had like 5 going across and maybe 4 or 5 down, I thought that it would cut out each clip individually, but my machine ended up cutting this hole, this hole, this hole, this hole, all the way across. Then it would come back, do the second hole all the way across, third hole all the way across, and then it went back and cut out each individual clip. It doesn't really matter what order your machine does it in. It's still going to cut it out anyway. So now we have our our coil clips are set to, let's see, set to cut. We're good to go. We're going to head back to our regular screen, and we're going to select the whole object, and we're going to make it one object. So group selected shapes. And now we can just spread these out throughout the page. We can replicate, let's see, replicate fill page. So now we have a whole bunch of coil clips that are evenly spaced on our machine, and these will cut out beautifully on our plastic. So what you're going to do is we are going to go in and we're going to tell the machine the depth that we want it to cut. So I actually ended up making my own cut settings. You can play with these if you'd like. You can see what works for your machine and what doesn't. If you have the extra deep cut blade, you might not need to use these settings. All I know is that when I was doing this the other day, this is what these are the settings that worked for me. I actually ended up creating, if you use this plus button here, you can create what's called user-defined settings, and I have one that works for my online white matte labels perfectly, and this is a new one I just created for the laminate. Now, I called it 10 mil laminate because I thought that's what I was going to be using to cut through 10 mil laminate. It ended up not working, but it worked beautifully on the 5 mil laminate. So the settings that worked for this, you're going to set your ratchet blade to 10, you're going to set your speed to 3, and you're going to set your thickness to 33. And you want to put double cut on. So I didn't have the patience to try many other options aside from this. You might be able to get your machine to work on a 9 or an 8. You could possibly speed it up. You could maybe change the thickness, or you might not even need to use double cut. But I know for right now that these settings worked to cut out these clips. So now that you have all of your cut settings in place, all you're going to do is you're going to send it to the machine, and you are going to put your laminate. It should look sort of like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of clear plastic paper. You're going to line it up on your cutting mat. If you have a Cameo, you're just going to line it up in the corner. If you have a portrait, you may need to trim that laminate down to exactly 8.5 by 11. I can't remember. I don't use my portrait much anymore. But just make sure that that piece of laminate is going to be treated like its own piece of paper. And then you're just going to send it through a machine. It's going to cut all these out, and you're going to be able to pop out your coil clips. Once you have your coil clips popped out, all cut out, you are to attach it to something, you're just going to use a piece of double-sided tape, or you could use one of those adhesive glue runners from Michaels, and you're going to put that on here and then attach whatever object you want to attach to your coil clip. So the beauty of this is now you can take that piece of tape off of this coil clip when you're done with it and slap a fresh piece of double-sided tape on it, and you can reuse these coil clips over and over and over again. So I think that's it, everything that I did. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you have a video you'd like to see, a how-to video or a review of some kind, go ahead and leave me a comment as well. And let me know if you guys need anything else. Hopefully I explained it well enough that somebody who doesn't know how to use Silhouette can do it, and somebody who does know how to use Silhouette can also do it. But you guys can see that it works out pretty easily. So if you guys want to see that other video, go ahead and subscribe. And once I post the video for the 10 mil keyhole Erin Condren clips, you'll get a notification that the video is up. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and talk to you later. Bye.